PLD, PJ Campbell, two mediocre white dudes on film. Because frankly, we know you don't have enough of that in your life. So we're here to give you more. And without further ado, here are two mediocre white dudes on film.
And we're back. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I saw you. You tried. You tried again. You tried to cut me off before we started. I saw the look on your eyes.
Actually, I want to let you know, I gave that one to you. I acted like I was going to go for it, but I knew I was going to give it to you
You set
because
me up,
I
motherfucker.
did.
How dare
I
you.
was being benevolent. I was like, I'm going to give it to him. I know he likes beating me into the fact, so I'll let him have this one.
That sounds really terrible.
I did.
It really did. Like the way you said that, you probably should have thought about it before it came out. But I know that
Yeah.
the filter thing between your mouth and your brain is broken. So
Well, it's been a few weeks, so I'm a little out of practice.
it's true, which means we have to wish Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, New Year, Lunar New Year. Happy all the
Solstice.
holidays that have happened over the last several weeks.
Since we've been here last. That's true. Yeah, I hope everybody had a great holiday. I hope we had a great New Year, and hopefully it's a great 2023. How was your holidays?
I mean, uneventful as best as possible. I'm you know what, man?
What?
In the immortal words of Roger Murtaugh, I'm getting
Getting
too old for this shit.
shit.
Yeah, it's about quiet nights in or like being with small groups of people instead of like the go of the holidays. I also just, we've talked about it. I was not necessarily in like the most jovial of holiday spirits this year.
Yep.
And so it gave me a chance to like reflect and be like, maybe I am too old for this shit. Like, I don't know. It's just kind of where I was at. And I enjoyed what I did. I saw movies, hung out a little bit. I talked to you, been busy. Life outside of the stuff we do here has been like kind of speeding up and ramping up. And so I've been trying to find that balance and things like that again.
Always the
Which is
toughest thing.
Yeah, which is hard, which is like, I mean, I know you saw it, but like I posted a couple days ago because I keep getting people who are like asking me to do like trailer reactions or like be on all their like shows or whatever. And I'm like, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm taking a step back. Like, unless I'm doing it with you, I'm really not signing up to do anything because I don't have the time. I'm trying to find time for myself. And time for myself is very important. And we're on like a weird other side of the COVID bubble. Like COVID still exists and it is always going to exist. And we all just need to remember that. But like the world is open and we're able to go out and we're all like learning to live again.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so I'm trying to embrace that, I guess. So I've been dealing with that up and down a little bit over the last several weeks. And it's a journey. I'm in a transition period, if you will.
That's actually sometimes a good thing. It's tiring, and sometimes you can't really see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, as
Right.
you're in the midst of the transition. But once you get there, it's a good thing overall. I am also feeling too old for this shit. I'm actually, obviously, I'm older than you are, so I definitely feel
Oh,
that in
yeah.
my bones. Well, at least physically, I am. Mentally, probably not. Mentally, I'm probably younger than
Much
you.
younger. I'm like the older brother in this situation. It's fine.
But holidays were interesting for me as well. My old man got COVID, but he's okay. Everything's fine with him.
Good.
He's the older. He made it through, and he didn't feel bad. But he got it right before Christmas, so we actually had to postpone Christmas. We had holidays like this last week from. Actually, this is Sunday. This Sunday we had a little holiday bash at
Oh,
my
yeah.
father's house. But what was interesting about that was that means Christmas Day we suddenly went from this big, usually chaotic family get together, which I love my family. I love family gatherings, but like you, I'm kind of getting a little older. Like I'm kind of less like the chaos of things here and there. We got a Christmas Day where it was just my it was just Kim, me, and 2 kids who live here, and we just stayed in our pajamas all day. We watched Spirited. We just made breakfast, and it was like one of the
And
best
you and I were
Christmases I've
texting
had.
all day.
We absolutely were.
Dude, my Christmas ended with food poisoning. It was the fucking worst.
Oh, I remember that. Remember you told me that. I was like, "Oh, that oh god,
Yeah, and
wow."
it turned out, my dad got sick too, and it was he had gotten this box of pears from a friend,
Oh,
and the pears apparently had, like, gone bad, and so he and I both got sick eating them, and I was like, "Of course," because why wouldn't that happen? You know what I'm saying?
of
Like,
course.
it was a whole thing, but for the most part, I actually enjoyed the day because similar to you, like, it was just kinda, like, in pajamas, I hung out with my parents, I watched a couple of the Doctor Who Christmas specials, I watched, Die Hard on Christmas Eve
Of
because every
course.
Christmas Eve, I watch Die Hard. You know, it's the small things, it's the simple things, it makes it easier, but you know what? I'm happy to say that, like, we're on the other side of it now because, 2023, it's a new year, and New Year's are super exciting, like, and I'm not going into a new year with, like, resolutions or anything. My biggest
Right.
resolution is be me because it's just the easiest resolution not to fuck up. Like, it just is. Just be me, and I'm gonna be all right.
Challenge
So,
accepted, by the way, but okay.
motherfucker. I'm doing that, and then my birthday's in a couple of weeks, so I'm staring down that barrel. And so that's fun because it's just looking at me like
There it
this,
is.
like,
Yep.
"Motherfucker, you ready to be older?" And I'm like, "Not particularly, no, but thank you." So, you know, it's just but it's gonna be a good year, and I think that you and have lots of cool stuff that we wanna do here, and I have lots of things that I'm just enjoying in life other than just being your friend, which is a good thing. So, living and being and going to Mondo movies, and by the way, I got to see Jack Frost at Mondo at the Loft.
That's
Now,
pretty
and not
sweet.
the Michael Keaton Jack Frost. We're
Right, right.
talking about the really terrible B direct to video Jack Frost movie on the big screen.
That's pretty
I have
cool.
a story for you.
Okay.
So, there's 2 of these movies now, and they're
Right.
trying to make a third. But after seeing it, it had been 15 years since I had seen that movie probably. So, I go on, like, this deep dive, and I'm reading about some of the people who are in it, and, like, some of the actors are kinda recognizable, but the guy who plays the lead in the movie, that is the cop who's trying to kill Jack Frost,
Right.
he's in both of them.
Okay.
Brace for impact.
Okay, I'm bracing.
The dude who plays the cop trying to get Jack Frost in real life was killed in an avalanche.
Get out of here.
I'm not kidding. I learned this while I was going down a rabbit hole learning
Get
about the
out of here.
Jack Frost in real life found his revenge against the dude who played the main cop in the Jack Frost movies.
How is that even like
I'm going to hell.
that just I don't understand. How that
Color you what I was when I learned it.
uh, that
I've been waiting weeks to tell you this, by the way. I didn't even want to text it to you. I wanted to see your reaction happen in front of me.
oh my god. I can't that is
One of the greatest things you've ever heard.
like not great because I don't want the guy to have died, obviously, but at the same time, it is one of the it is a very just a kismet thing that happens in life, and like you can't plan those things out, but when they happen, it's kind of like I wonder if like that went through his mind. I mean, I don't want to like get all like
Jesus Christ. I wonder what
fucking
he was
Jack
thinking
Frost.
before he died,
Dude,
is
actually,
what Paul is asking right now.
did it pass through his mind? Fucking Jack Frost. Like, wow,
Unbelievable.
that is unbelievable. That's an impressive thought there, man. I appreciate. I'm better knowing that fact. I guess I'll definitely watch those movies when I rewatch them or watch them with in a new light. Um, we are laughing.
Can
I
we
feel
also
bad
talk
laughing
about
at
the
this
fact
part.
that the Jack Frost sequel is them, like, going to the Bahamas or something, and they wanted Beetlejuice to go Hawaiian at WB, and they couldn't manage to do that, but Jack Frost absolutely went fucking tropical before Beetlejuice did.
Of course they did.
I just there's just some things that are things that happen in life. Apparently, that is
Uh,
one of them. Uh, but, otherwise, I got to see Night of the Creeps last week, and
that's
I was
interesting.
fucking stoked.
I would
So
like to have seen that. Absolutely.
well, there's always a place for you to stay out here.
I know I have to go. I should. I will. At some point, we're definitely it's going to happen. And we're going to do a live episode of this, and it's going to be
Oh,
great.
dear
And,
lord.
yeah, I don't think I can handle it, but
That's, don't cross the streams right there.
literally, don't cross the
Like, literally, don't cross the stream. But, man, I gotta say, all things being equal, it's so funny we took so much time off to get to this last fucking movie.
Can I tell you how much that hurt my soul? As part of
Oh,
it's
I
just
know.
I'm so I'm so anal about some things. I'm so complete I have OCD about little things, and the fact that we couldn't make it to the fifth final destination and then take a break, which is
And it wasn't because of you and I.
no, not at all. It was just the way the schedule worked out. We couldn't make it work, unfortunately, the other ways, and oh, so annoying, so annoying. It's like we have that last film to do in the series. We have to do it. We have to
I
take a
know.
3-week break or so.
But we made it.
We
So
definitely.
here we are on the other side of it, thank God. And
Not only
let
that,
me
but the
just say,
last team we let me I'm sorry to cut you off, but last
oh
thing
yeah,
also is the fact that the last one we did
it's so
was
fucking bad.
such a god awful movie. I hate that that's the last thing we
That's a
did.
bad fucking movie, dude.
Yes.
Like okay, I don't know what it is, but every once in a while, I I I am the most optimistic movie watcher out of all of the people in our group of
Right.
friends, probably, and that's saying something. Like for the most part, that's saying something. You're the closest to it, other
Yeah.
than me.
And sometimes I'm actually even more optimistic than you about some things, but
Yeah, but
yeah,
then you're less on others.
that's
I
very
think it
true.
balances itself out
It does.
because there's a back and forth here between you and I where sometimes we just don't agree on things like Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom being the best Jurassic Park sequel.
Yeah,
So,
it's not true. But
and it is, but
although
that's the
although
whole
you know
point.
the funny thing is, I do like it.
I
So
know.
I'm actually with you in that I actually like it and feel is that's where we do meet, where we have
Yeah,
these
we do.
differences.
We both at least like it. Unlike,
Dominion,
Jeff.
we don't even talk about Dominion though. We won't talk about that one.
I don't know what you're talking about. Dominion has good ideas. It's just a terribly fucking directed movie.
Dominion is a movie that exists.
I mean, it's better than The Gray Man.
Which I still haven't seen, so I don't know.
So anyway, speaking of movies that have personally affronted me, uh, when a movie really gets under my skin in like a bad way, I start to dislike it more as I walk away from it, and that the Final Destination makes me feel that way. The
Yes.
more I got farther away from it, the angrier I was getting, and I was reminded after we did our episode, I was like, this is why I don't watch this movie. Like I never went back to it for obvious reason. And then you get to Final Destination 5, and I'm reminded why the franchise is so fucking good,
Yes.
and it makes me hate for that much more.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that walking away from 4, I had the same kind of reaction that you had, and I kept wondering myself, am I hating this even more because I'm usually so positive and I hate the fact that it's making me negative? And that might be part of the reason why. I had never seen 4, so you warned me about how bad it was. You're like, this is not a good one. I'm like, okay, I'll go in.
Yeah.
I'm going to go open minded anyway. I maybe I'll love it because we have had our disagreements. Like our disagreements are usually more. Like we said earlier, they're kind of closer disagreements. They're kind of more usually. If you hate a movie, I usually don't love it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So, but I did go and go, maybe I'll enjoy it. Maybe it'll be passable for me. Yeah, it wasn't passable for me. It was good. I think I rated it less than you did actually.
I'm pretty sure you did, which is funny because I retroactively looking at it, I probably should have been even harder on it. But it is a bad fucking movie.
It is a bad movie, and it should feel bad.
It should feel bad. It should be on timeout.
Yeah,
It should be sitting in the corner with a little dunce hat on its head, being like, you feel bad about what you've done. And that movie is the highest grossing movie in that franchise, which is beyond bonkers.
That I can't even like fathom that. Like, how is that even possible? Like, I. All right, you know what? We're done talking about that.
Well, no. So here's why. The build up to that is so, Final Destination, or The Final Destination, if you will, came out in 2009, and it made a shit ton of money. So, of course, the first thing that they did was fast track a sequel.
Right, of course.
Because, of course. And I remember when this was happening, I went, fucking why? They've clearly run the course of it.
Right.
But this time around, they got a brand new director, a brand new screenwriter. By the way, the dude who wrote this wrote Arrival.
Damn, that's right. I remember that actually.
Eric Heiserer.
Yep.
So Eric Heiserer comes in to write the script. Stephen Quayle comes in to direct. And immediately I went, okay, new blood. That's interesting. That's cool. Maybe this could work. As it turns out, Final Destination 5 is a absolute fucking banger of a movie. And this is like only the second or third time I think I've seen it. And it was to do it for this. But I was excited because I always loved the ending, and we'll get into it. But I was very happy you had no idea what it was.
Which is, after the fact, I gotta say, shocking to me, because I realized halfway through this movie, there's a scene that came up, and we'll talk about it a little bit. I'll just call it the happy ending scene.
Oh, yes.
And that scene came up, and I was like, I have seen this before. I hadn't seen anything. I think I might have come into the movie at that time. And I remember that, and I remember the final battle, like, in the kitchen, but, like, I think I watched it and had no idea what it was on cable, and I didn't know what I was watching, and it was a background thing. So, like,
Right.
I had no idea it was a Final Destination movie. I had no idea anything. It was just kind of one of those, "Oh, it's some cable horror movie. Some cool kills. Okay, cool." And then I went away. So then when I went in I went into this movie, you had said it was good. You had told me it was a decent rebound, especially after 4. I was like, "Okay, cool." And I watched it, and it was such a different experience for me. But yes, the ending itself, I had no idea on. But really quick before we go any further, I want to go back to Mr. Heistrazer. I just looked at his filmography. What an interesting filmography of his writing. He wrote Nightmare on Elm Street from 2010, which is I have to rewatch that. A lot of people hate that, and I'm not a big fan of it. But I don't know.
Dislike it greatly.
I don't know if some of the writing was the problem, if it was more like the execution of it. I have to get into that again. But Final Destination 5, the Thing prequel, rather,
which is actually pretty good. I just rewatched that recently.
Lights Out, which I know I really highly enjoyed. Loved Lights Out. Arrival. He wrote Bird Box, which I was found to be good enough, a little bit derivative, but still a fun enough picture. And then 2020's Bloodshot.
Yeah, but do you see the co-written by there?
I do see that. Yes, I did see that.
So Jeff Wadlow, not a good writer, not a good filmmaker. So I'm not going to put all of that on Eric. As far as that is concerned, because I mean, Bloodshot's just a bad fucking movie. Just a real bad fucking movie. Remember when that was like the beginning of a brand new comic book universe, and then it.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, it also was a pandemic movie, and all of a sudden,
thank God for that.
Yes. So
because it really saved all of us from the Vin Diesel comic book universe that is the Valiant Bloodshot comics.
It would have changed the hierarchy of the.
Never mind. I am going to destroy all of you chuckle fucks out there who are doing the sell the Snyderverse to Netflix thing. Get your fucking head examined, you god awful pieces of human.
They're desperate. They're absolutely desperate.
Forever burn in hell for the absolute monstrosity of what your Snyder cut movement has become.
It reeks of desperation.
Yes, and I say this as someone who liked the Snyder cut of Justice League. There is no world, motherfuckers, where WB is going to sell its most valuable IP to Netflix to finish Justice League movies for a filmmaker that WB can't stand.
Hmm.
Get your heads out of your asses. Thank you for
100%.
coming to my TED Talk.
100%. I gotta think that some of them aren't serious. I gotta think some of them
No,
understand
they
what they're
are.
doing.
That's the
But
problem. You saw it. I showed you
I know.
messages that I was getting.
I know. And somebody blocked somebody who blocked me, and I have no idea who they are. I guess I offended them somehow. Oh well.
Probably listening to our show.
Maybe that's what it is.
Maybe.
But that's fine.
The Snyderverse stuff is like astronomically dumb.
And
And
I'm again also a guy who was very pro Snyderverse. I love
know.
Man of Steel. I like Batman BVS, the Ultimate Edition. I love Justice League. I would have loved to have seen Snyder's vision go to completion. I would love to have seen what that would have been, but it didn't. It's not.
And you gotta
It's over.
accept it, man.
Yeah,
It's over. It's done. And it's so funny to me.
Game over, man.
Game over. It drives me bonkers because I think that they believe that the Snyderverse is an IP of its, like, in and of itself.
It's not
And
bad.
I'm like, it's not. Like, for those who don't know at this point, this idea is that these fans of Zack Snyder want WB to sell what they are considering an IP, apparently, in the Snyderverse, acting like Snyder created these characters, and sell it to Netflix so that he can finish his Justice League movies, which is like highly fucking comical for the fact that it makes no sense because there's no world where it is, number one, not a separate IP. Snyder was playing with characters that were owned by another person and company. You don't just sell those parts off because also we already know they're making a new Superman movie. So the last thing that they're also going to do is go, and here, by the way, Netflix, you can also make your own Superman
movie
thing.
to compete
Like,
with us, right?
Yeah, there's no world where you're going to do that. You know why? Because it diminishes your
Ridiculous.
brand. You're watering it down. This is the dumbest fucking thing in the history of dumb fucking things. Be better.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? I don't want to talk about it anymore.
I just had to get it off my chest.
I know, but I want to bring you back down. I want to calm you. I want to make you not have a heart attack because you're so stressed out over it. I just want to.
Am I?
You are. You're very upset about it.
I feel very namaste right now. I don't know what you're talking about.
As you just yell, "Thank you for coming to my TED Talk."
Yeah, but I mean, there's levels, right? You ramp up, you come back down.
I know.
You take an edible. We go play outside in the freeway. So anyway,
let's get back to our movie.
Back to the movie. So
patron,
2009.
From patron Brandy Parker. I just want to say we finished this out for Brandy Parker. Mwah.
Yeah,
all right.
So 2009, the Final Destination makes all the money in the middle of the 3D craze because the Final Destination is in 3D, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One of the worst uses of 3D, as far as I'm concerned, in a horror movie. Nothing about it is very fun or exciting. So we've talked about this in the past. It's really interesting. Like every one of the Final Destination movies has seemed to take way longer to make than you would anticipate. Like as far as horror movies are concerned, if a horror movie does really well, it feels like the sequel is pretty much fast tracked and we get to it very quickly.
Right.
That was not the case with these, but this is actually one of the faster turnarounds. It's a 2-year turnaround. This one comes out in 2011, also in 3D. And this actually feels like a movie. And this is where everything changes very quickly comparatively to how I felt watching The Final Destination. From the opening on, everything about this suddenly feels like an actual movie.
Yes.
And it feels like even though it's a faster timetable comparative to some of the other ones, it really feels methodically planned out. It actually is memorable. Everything about this, from the opening to many of the kills to the characters, are actually interesting. It's actually really well staged and put together. It's a really well directed movie. And on top of that, it's the return of none other than one Mr. Tony fucking Todd.
Literally, I have in my notes, Tony fucking Todd.
Yeah, I knew you would, because that's who he is.
Yeah.
Tony fucking Todd.
I will say right away, and this is maybe minor spoiler, but we haven't gotten there yet. Um, PJ and I both texted each other a few times during while we were watching it, when I was watching it, when he was watching it. Like there are times that we could honestly say this is the best of the series. Like it was that
Easily.
damn good.
Yeah.
I still don't know if I fit there yet. I have to think after going through this episode and talking about it with you, and we'll rank at the end, obviously. But there are some moments where it absolutely is because it kind of catches the tone perfectly to me. The film, I remember when we did the first film, I had a little minor problem with the tone a little bit as far as I didn't really
Right.
know what it wanted.
And we had talked back and forth a little bit
Kind of
about it.
fun. Yep. I mean, I thought that two had really kind of did exact finally found that tone I was looking for. This kind of found that tone pretty much right away and totally blew the fourth one out of the water. Recaptured the tone, and the issue with it was it had great characters. It had great characters. All of them that were written were well developed for a horror movie, especially. They're well developed. They're well performed. They were not over the top in any kind of annoying way. I mean, they had a little bit of archetypes here and there that you need to have in those kind of horror movies, but they really perform their duties well, and you don't know what they're going to do, and it's all there's nothing cliche about a lot of them. If that makes sense. Even like the
No.
most cliched characters had some kind of depth to them. To
They
me,
also seem to move away from that.
yes.
There's one character in particular that I immediately made note of that too, which was Candace.
Hmm.
Um, the moment or I'm sorry, Olivia. The moment you meet Olivia, they definitely
Yes.
have this, like, she's the hot girl who's sleeping around sort of thing, and I immediately kinda made note. I was like, "Huh, alright." Because again, I'd only seen it a handful of times, and I didn't fully remember everything with her, and so I'm sitting there kinda watching it, and I was like, "Oh, please don't be like the terrible stereotype version of this character," and it turns out she's not,
No.
and it kinda subverts a lot of the expectations that I have with a lot of these characters, even the David Koechner character, and that's the other thing. David Koechner's in this. Courtney B. Vance is in this. Tony Todd is in this. This one is populated with some really good character actors in supporting roles in a way that the others all the way through are not.
Which we have said time and time again, really honestly feels like is the key to a good movie. The
Yes.
key to a good movie is having that support to let your lead act it's even more important sometimes than the leading actor. And you,
100%.
I'm not saying you can get away with having a terrible lead actor because that will tank you as well. But if you have a serviceable lead actor and then you have them support with really great character actors around them,
It
that's what
elevates
makes it
it.
great. It elevates it so much more. By the way, I think it's funny. I laughed. I was agreeing with you 100%. You're like, Candace. And I'm like, yep, absolutely. And you went, oh, no, I mean, Olivia. Yes, that's what I meant. 'Cause I actually had the same thought in my mind. I was
Yeah.
thinking Candace and Olivia were the same character.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
funny in
yeah.
my mind too. Just wanted to throw that out
I
there.
stopped and I went, "Nope, sorry, other one," and, like, walked myself back.
We were both thinking the same exact thing. That's
Yeah.
funny to me.
No, because of course we are. How could we not? But I immediately realized that this movie finds itself in a place of it is the 5th film in a franchise.
Right.
It is coming off the tail end of arguably the worst film in the franchise,
Mhm.
and at this point, the franchise is going over a decade.
Yeah.
So, you're also kind of feeling long in tooth, potentially, if you're coming back to do another one. So, everything that could go against this movie quickly goes away as you start to watch it, and it actually introduces some stuff into the franchise that I thought was super interesting, and I was really happy to see, and that includes the Courtney B. Vance character because he plays this detective who starts to try to figure out what's happening, and I thought that was such an interesting twist on the franchise because in the first one, there's some cops in it, but they mostly just think that the lead is crazy, and they're not really there as anything other than speed bumps for the character. Vance is actually a character who has like care for these characters to some capacity when he realizes that everything is not what it seems.
Right. And I like the fact that it does in the beginning, he suspects who
Right.
but he does the thing that a lot of time horror cops don't do, and they develop along the way when they can explain things instead of trying to keep pigeonholing people. I mean, he goes from one, he does go to the other, to the dime store. Tom Cruise, we talked about, he kind of
Mhm.
goes to him for a little bit. He always talks to Kettner about keeping things open, but he does develop in a smart way and like at a time like it's not rushed, it's not too slow. He gets more and more information like a good cop would, a good detective would. He gets more and more information, and he suddenly says he can't figure this out. And when he does it, he doesn't like he's not a guy who's so arrogant that he's gonna I'm gonna keep putting it on you. He starts opening up and saying, you know what, you're right, I can't explain these things. Tell me more because I think you guys know more about this or you have your own theories. Let me know what your theories are because I'm trying to figure this out. So it becomes like this like hero to the end, which is not something you'd expect from that character. And that's what this
Right,
movie does a lot of.
exactly. And that's what this movie is so good at, is
Yeah,
doing stuff like that throughout, and that's what I really like, and, just to jump to the end, the other thing it does is it flips its head by turning this into a secret prequel
right,
to the original movie, and I always thought that was such a brilliant twist of the fate and, like, the way that it all plays out, and it does this movie in particular, in the same way that you and I talked about Final Destination 2. The thing I really like about this one is it feels like it makes the stuff that has happened in the others matter,
right,
and there's this idea that as you pull things apart and you start to see the, like, insides of this franchise, and you're like, "Oh, that's really interesting," and for this one to go, "Yeah, but what did you thought you knew is that death was coming for them in particular. No, they just happened to be getting on the same plane where
right,
death was coming after the guy who survived the last movie."
right.
And I really, really like that.
Yeah,
And
me
it
too.
was what Final Destination 2 did really well also, is that all those characters, if you remember as we talked about it, was that they were all indirectly involved in the lives of the other characters.
Yep. Hmm.
And so this one doing the same thing and this path kind of being started again is super interesting to me. The other thing, and it's something you and I talked about with the third movie as well, but it seems like mostly the most apparent as it could be here. Tony Todd's Bloodworth is 100% also the serial killer and like death incarnate. And
Yeah,
this movie in particular, like, really goes the length to push the point home.
yeah,
Um, I think Final Destination 3 does it in, like, a very cheeky way with him being the PA voice and the theme park voice, but in this one, in particular, like, putting him in there and having him appear in the different places is really good for the franchise.
I agree. And having been the coroner makes sense as well. I know
Mhm.
he's obviously works in the morgue in the first film. Um, and I actually like that he's not. And it's a weird thing because like he acts very eccentric in the first film. The second film, he's like very much over the top to a degree, and not necessarily in a bad way. I shouldn't say over the top because it's like he's right on the top, if you will.
Yep.
But he plays it much more low key this time around, and I actually prefer this performance from him in a way. It seems like he's very much more a straight and narrow, like, I am death, even though he never comes out and says that, just letting you know what's going on, and I will get my due. And that's it. And he
Mhm.
just shows up, and it's like, okay, cool, cool, cool. And when you're Tony Todd, you can make that work.
Yeah, exactly, and I really like the way that he's presented here because, to your point, it's a quieter performance in a more layered performance, as weird as that sounds, but it is. And when they confront him outside, and Nicholas Diongsto, or Diagosto, the who plays Sam Lawton, he's the
Yeah,
lead.
Italy guy.
Sorry if I butchered your name.
Yeah,
He is very good in this, actually, but his confrontation with Tony Todd in particular, and Todd being like, "Look, you guys escaped death. But the problem is that you created this ripple in reality.
right,
You were supposed to die and you didn't.
right.
Now death is coming for you, and I have seen this before, and I love this too because, again, you have no idea it's a prequel. So he's talking about other people.
Right. So there's obviously something happened before this, even
Yeah,
then.
there's stuff that has happened before this, which I think is super interesting.
When are we going to get our
So
Final Destination set in like 1865 or something?
yeah, right. And there he is,
There it
still to this
is.
day.
I love it.
Uh, I just sit there and I get very wrapped up in the way that he delivers the lines, basically being like, "You warped reality,
Mhm.
and like this is on you. You may not like it, and it may not be fair, but
And
you played against it."
yeah. And I like that they introduced the idea that you could trade off, and if you kill somebody, you can take their place, but not just take their place and like then they don't and take their place. They don't just take your place in death. You take their place. So if they were due to die in
Yes,
70 years, you are now slid into that time stream. It makes sense because just like ripples in a river, you talk about that's always the biggest, time thing. You throw a rock in the river, how it happens. Ripples stay, they go outwards, but they still stay the same. The river still stays, the river doesn't change course.
right.
It's still the same river. It's just a little bit of a different part of it, so to speak.
And
Um,
that's
yeah,
this franchise doing, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no,
that's this franchise doing the thing that we talked about a lot with 2 and 3 is finding ways to expand a little bit
build
on the
more.
things that you know and the way that it's done, and I always thought that was super interesting. And so the other thing that this movie does really well is that it takes the pieces of the other movies that I really like and kind of homages to them in certain aspects. Like number one, we haven't even talked about it, but I love the opening disaster in this movie. I'm horrified of bridges. Um,
Mm,
like in real life, it's an anxiety thing for me because I have these fears of driving across one, being that fucking high in the air and cables snapping or something and like falling into water. And a part of that I think is growing up in the Bay Area and like Northern California area and knowing what had happened with like the Brooklyn or the Bay Bridge back in the 80s after the earthquakes and stuff
right.
like that. So that stuff is always in the back of my mind because I'm weird. And so this movie being a bridge that starts to break with people on it is my actual nightmare, and it gives me the worst fucking anxiety in a good way.
It's just funny because I remember you saying the same thing, almost the same thing about the Final Destination 3 with the
Right.
roller coaster. I will actually say, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, I think this is my favorite opening.
Yeah.
I think it is, and like I would have said that before. I'm surprised myself saying that because I love two so much as far as the opening goes, and I did love three's opening as well. And yet this one really got me, and I think it was a combination of the anxiety, the tension they brought up, like the little nods to the previous one. We saw like
The
the wood
yeah, I was gonna
truck, and
say you see the truck that and that's what I was where I was going with it is the little nods.
right,
That was
little
so
nods,
good. You
right.
see that and you're like, "Oh, wait."
Oh, right,
You
right.
and it makes me wonder, is that the same log truck?
Maybe
It
it
or
is
is it you know what I mean?
same
Like,
company or something. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Um, but then when the actual event happens, after the tension's built, like the kills are so solid and so like I am a guy who loves horror films, and I've seen many horror deaths over the course of my film watching career. Um, but there's plenty of time in this one I was like, that was a good one. Oh, that was a good one. And like there's a couple right on the desk, like right from the get-go on the jump. Like the first death, Candace falling into the sailboat or whatever. You're like,
mm.
oh, that's
Yeah,
good.
she's like the
Ooh.
first one and it just
It's like, that's
damn.
what we're going with. All right. But my favorite one, I'm gonna say, I'll throw it out right here. My favorite one of this opening sequence was Dime Store Tom Cruise.
Yes.
Like,
By the way, we should say real quick, Miles Fisher, who plays Peter
I feel
Friedkin,
bad, so I should say, yeah.
the reason we're calling him that is the dude looks a lot like Tom Cruise, and you know how much he looks like Tom Cruise. You've probably seen him before, and not in a way that you're anticipating, because he is the one who does all the Tom Cruise deep fakes on the internet.
That's right.
And I didn't know that until I was looking it up because I was like, he suspiciously looks like both Tom Cruise and Dave Franco as if they had had a child.
Right.
So I was looking into it, and he also played Tom Cruise in one of those bad 2000s parody movies by the really bad directing duo who just kept
Yeah.
doing them. I think it was like superhero movie or something.
Yeah, that's it.
But so Miles Fisher, if you've ever seen him in anything, that's probably where you recognize him is from the deep fakes in the middle of COVID that were like
Nah.
being shared around a ton.
Yeah, he probably doesn't like that I call him that. I mean it with affection because I have no problem with
I
him.
know
It's
you
not like
do,
he's
but I
that.
just wanted to,
No, I know. I
you
want
know,
everybody else to know.
yeah,
I want Miles to know. I don't mean any disrespect, Miles. I actually think it's kind of funny. Because
it
he
is
does. He
really
lives like a
funny.
bonkers. But his death was phenomenal. Like, it hits by the pylon or whatever it was. I love
Yeah.
how it's like his eye gets affected, but then
Oh,
when he
dude.
falls and he hits the base and like, wow, shit,
Yeah.
man.
Keckner's is really good. Like
Oh, Keckner's
it,
awesome.
the thing about it too is that they very well set up as they're going across. Like number one, look how high this bridge is,
Right.
and they drop those like very clumsy construction workers drop the water thing down, and it
The pail
bounces
or
off.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh shit, like you're real high up.
Yep.
And so now immediately my ass is totally fucking clenched. And I'm sitting there going, "Oh dear lord. Oh, it's only going to get worse from here, isn't it?" And sure as shit, it just gets worse from there. But
Right.
boy, howdy man, like watching the way that they have it play out and the way that one of the dudes just gets whipped by one of the falling steel beams
Yep.
or cables rather than not a beam, but a cable. Like the way that plays out, Keckner's death is crazy. Like the more it happens, you're just watching it. And then like again, Olivia's hers is horrifying because she can't see without her glasses on.
Right.
So she's trying to go across the part of the bridge where they're getting off only to, fall to her death and have a car fall on top of her.
Yeah, she actually makes sense. What if she
Yeah.
falls into the water and lives, and all of a sudden the car's coming down? Boom.
Yeah.
Oops.
And the other interesting thing is this is one of the I think the only one of the openings where someone lives.
Right. I was actually thinking about that as well. Molly makes it across. Although, interestingly enough, like I thought they were gonna play with this at one point, and they didn't. They never really did. I almost wondered, like, did she live? Because the only reason she lives is the fact that our hero, our vision person, was
Right.
killed there.
Right.
She could have died after that, potentially. We didn't know. We wouldn't have seen it potentially. But I thought they might play with that, but they didn't. So I mean, I guess that's neither here nor there. It
I
actually
did think
becomes
that
a
was a thing I thought about though too.
yeah. It does become a thing where, I mean, I think it comes into play later on when that she lived and that she was, well, why do you get to live and then we didn't, kind of thing. But I thought it was an interesting possibility to go. I do want to throw in there real quick David Keckner's death. Uh, Again, Final Destination loves its fiery burning
Yes, it
deaths. Um,
does.
but that wasn't the only one too. Like, I got two in this one. I got this one, of course, and the plane at the end again. We got the replane burning death of our hero in a way. That was kind of cool as well. Um,
Mhm.
God, they love those deaths in there.
Yeah, Final Destination's all about the fiery
Fiery end.
Hades endings for
Right.
characters. And I'm always kind of here for it because I always
Yeah.
think it's a very interesting design
They do it well. They always
and
do
they
it
do it
well.
well. Yeah. Even for did
Yeah,
it
yeah,
well.
Forest. Yeah.
It's the one reason that I gave it a higher mark was
Yeah.
4 had a decent fiery death.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also like that this one has the song come back, but it's a
Yes.
different song, but it's also used only twice.
Right.
Um in very effectively.
Yeah, you know what? I will say, I think after watching this one specifically, I think I might have called it out before. I think they overplayed the song sometimes initially.
I
It
think
was
it
like
was the
their way
first
to
one you
call
kept
back.
saying that.
That
Yeah.
was like a little bit too much, I thought, in a way, but like it's totally the point where every time you heard that song, well, somebody's gonna die. Even like I mean, in the universe, you'd hear that song, but like, well, I can't listen to that song, or I'd fucking throw out all my John Denver or whatever it was. I forget. But this one is Dust in the Wind, a
Yeah.
great track, obviously. And yeah, same exact thing, but it's done well, and so you only hear it once or twice, just enough to be like, oh fuck, we're good now though. I was once in the beginning and once at the end, of
Yeah,
course,
and again, used sparingly but well.
but effectively.
Yeah. And I'll say this movie feels a little bit like a greatest hits of Final Destination in some
Mhm.
capacity as well because we end up with a death inside of a doctor's office again.
Yep.
in of some note. And again, the callback to the truck, the obviously the ending where it's revealed it's the plane. Like that's the big finale ending is that the big finale is you're revealed to be on the plane from the first
Right.
one again.
Right.
And little things like that go a long way to me because it makes it feel kind of lived in. But I'll say the gymnastics one drives me totally batshit bonkers because in a good way, where you're
Yeah.
watching it and you're just like waiting for it. And it's one of the best builds of any kill in the franchise.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Uh
I think
so
my
when it
note though,
finally gets there,
my note real quick about that, when I wrote that is never seen more close-ups on screws in my life.
yeah, right. Too many screws it's close-ups, but still.
They screw in the air conditioner, screw on the beam, screw like all the screws everywhere. It's amazing how she's really screwed at the end of that.
Dun-dum, well done. Well done. I
Thank
can't even be mad at you for that.
That was a good kill, though. That was another great kill. When she snaps, like, holy shit, that's awful. Um, and it's because partially because, like, again, I think I said it before, and I'll say it again, maybe in a slightly different way. These characters are well defined for a fifth entry. Like a
Yeah.
fifth entry in a horror franchise, usually getting like the okay, we're just gonna throw some teens up there or some young adults up there, and there'll be characters enough. We just want to see them die anyway. But no, they add proper relationships. Sam and Molly are good together. They're believable. They have that like oh, we're breaking up, but we're not. But it's not like again nothing over the top. About it just seems like a genuine, real relationship.
Well, especially because she thinks she's, like, standing in his way.
Right.
He's got what's really interesting is Sam as a character too is, like, there's some real life stuff that to your point, right, of this idea that he is split between 2 careers. I kind of
Right.
understand what that feels like. And
Yeah.
so he's got his day job, but he also has this dream of being a chef.
Right.
And so it's just very interesting as you're like, "Oh, I see." Like he's got this dynamic inside of him, and that actually leads to some interesting stuff in the 3rd act of the movie.
It
And
does.
then you have Peter and Candace, and they're actually quite good together, but then, Peter and Sam are clearly best friends, and Sam is also being stuck, and Peter's like, "Look, you need to choose which one," because he's like, "As your friend, I'm telling you this, because as your boss, I wanna fire you."
Right. Yep.
So, there's these dynamics in play there with just the central 4 that is already really good, but I actually like most of the characters around them too. Like, they're all pretty fucking good.
Yeah, and like they add quirks to them that like just make them more genuine. Like little things you can add to a character, give them something unique or something that they do that like just makes them grounded a little bit. And you do like Candace with the rubber band bit, right? She just does that little thing with the rubber bands. Like it's nothing that's necessary to the film, really. Although it does lead to the interesting with the build up to her death when the rubber band snaps off her finger, like that premonition of oh well, that's something to go off there. But the addition to that is just that that's a genuine quirk that a character has that makes them more real, makes them more so believable in a way. So you get to feel more. So when they do die, you're like, oh shit, I actually like that one. They're not just another death on screen.
And then there's the one that they build out, which is Isaac, played by PJ Byrne, who is like
Oh,
every
so
fucking dude that you knew who got out of college who never grew up.
so
And we
good.
all have that. There's always that one in your life, right?
100%.
And he's the one that I am desperately waiting to die.
Yeah.
And
Oh
he
yeah.
goes out in maybe the most fitting fucking way possible. His death is the worst.
Oh, it is phenomenally bad, and but I gotta say,
I love it.
I got such a chuckle out of that character the entire time. He's probably the most close to like an archetype or a caricature, and that's okay for that kind
But
of
again,
thing.
it makes sense.
It does, but he's got some of my favorite moments. There's a couple of things like the whole like he goes around the office afterwards and starts like trying to steal like his dead workmates items. But
Yeah.
my favorite line of the whole movie is they're at the ceremony of the funeral or whatever, and Kecker's talking and says he calls out his name as one of the dead. I was like Isaac Palmer, and he turns like, "Did you just fucking say my name?"
Dude, well, and then one of the best moments after comes from Nathan being like, I
he
see
just died.
dead people, and the people at the funeral just looking at them as he and Olivia are trying not to laugh. It's, like,
Right.
such a great moment, and again, man, it is wild seeing Keckner in this.
It is. And he has a great line later on when it's the same joke continued when Miles Fisher asked him or says something about Isaac just died. He's like, Isaac, was he dead already?
Yeah, so good.
It's just the delivery is so deadpan and perfect. I love it. Keckner's one of those
Keckner's
guys.
really good in this, actually.
Yeah.
Like, it's fun seeing him in something like this because it was not a character that you see a lot of.
Right, because you assume he's gonna be like he comes in the first time you see him. Okay, so he's the overbearing blowhard boss, and it's not like he changed much. But as the movie goes on, he isn't just that. Like I love the whole game he gets with Courtney Vance. Like, oh, do we need code names? Should we have code names? No,
Yeah.
okay. Loving like the detective part of it. It just
Ah,
seemed like a different. It's like a cool kind of character to explore instead of being. It could have been just the overblowing boss, and instead we got a little bit more out of it, and it made it much more entertaining
and
film
that's
because
this
of it.
whole movie,
Yeah,
and that's the actual thing I wanted to bring up to your point too. With all of that being said and how we're talking about it, talk about greatest hits of the franchise. The twist on Peter deciding to go after Molly is
mm,
really reminiscent of Final Destination 3,
right,
with one of the survivors deciding to go after the vision person.
right. Yep.
This time, he's not going after the person who had the vision. He goes after the person he thinks didn't deserve to live
Right.
because his
Why do you
girlfriend
deserve
died.
to live when we all don't? Right.
Right. And I thought that was such a great take on that. And it also made it interesting because it leads to a pretty good third act.
Yeah,
Like, the third act in this is really good.
it's solid. I will say that, like, if we're gonna be completely honest about it, I don't think it's perfectly done. His descent into madness isn't
No,
perfectly
it could have
done.
been
There's
done
some moments it's
differently.
like, yeah, instead of seeing the entire path, kinda like also he jumps a little bit here and there. You're kinda like, "Oh, that doesn't seem quite right." Maybe a little editing might have been a little different, kind of maybe it was edited out, some of the things kinda that
It
could
was
have been better.
probably edited down because
Right.
most of these movies are not more than 90 minutes,
Right,
so
so you need to find ways to cut it, and I get it. But this also isn't like an Oscar bait movie. So when you're watching it, it does well enough that you're kind of it does well enough to catapult the story across. You don't feel it's completely out of place. And that's all it needs to do. So Mouse is great with that, I think.
I think so, and I like that dynamic. I think it's really interesting, and I actually love that whole sequence inside the restaurant,
Yeah.
from the opening parts of it because the whole 3rd act takes place inside the restaurant that he works in,
Hmm.
and so the way that they set up that the entire time you're watching Sam be, like, nervous in the back room as he's getting
I
dinners and
love
stuff
it.
prepped, and it's really well done, and it's really good, and then you know, they do this thing where he decides that when Molly gets there, he's gonna let her know that they're going to Paris. He took the internship, they're gonna go together, and he's gonna make her a nice dessert to go with it. And he asks his boss, he goes, "Are you still cool with it?"
Right.
He goes, "As long as you clean up, like, it's fine." And so then to have Peter show up there too, in the way that it's done, it's really good. It's also, like, one of the few times a character is gonna brandish a gun
Well,
and, like, try to attempt to attack someone in this franchise. We don't see that.
no.
So it becomes like a cat and mouse game inside the darkened part of the restaurant, and I actually really dug it. I thought it was super cool.
Yeah, I agree, and you brought it up, so I'll bring it up as I want to touch base on it. The kitchen scene where obviously Sam thinks he might be next or whatever, and he goes around, and it's such a great play on the anticipatory tension that the series is known for. Uh,
Mhm.
in this same film, the gymnastic thing and the opening sequence, that's what the series does so much of. So to kind of play off that, and he's not going to get killed, it kind of made it almost even more enjoyable. You kind of got a chuckle
Yeah.
out of it. It's like a wink and nod, and like I'm going to make fun of myself a little bit, just enough
Yeah.
to like kind of make it amusing. I thought it was a great addition
Well,
to it.
it also goes as far as once they're in the cat and mouse chase in the end of it, at one point, you see Peter shoot the gas tank to or the
Mm,
steam tank, and it knocks Sam down,
right,
and there's a knife next to it, and it starts to spin, and it falls, and it hits the ground next to him,
right.
and Peter goes, "Not your time yet."
Yep.
And
I
it's such
love
a
it.
good moment. Like,
Yeah,
again, it knows what it's doing.
yeah, it really does. Um, Before we finish up with that part, I do want to go back really quick and say one of the deaths we didn't touch base on was the eye laser death. We mentioned the
Oh, and
doctor's
that was
office,
the
but
one, again, doctor's office.
doctor's office one that we only we just surfacely said that. I just want to say specifically, this was a great explanation, or I'm sorry, a great what's the word I'm looking for? Example. Thank you.
Yes.
Example.
You're
Example
welcome. I
of
I did nothing, I just sat and stared at you, but it all worked out.
it all worked out. I'm having trouble speaking. It's an
We're out
example.
of practice, it's okay.
It is. It is of the kind of death this film has. It's over the top. Um, it's very a gory death in a way, and like when the eye, the laser hits the eye, and then like she's all burnt and everything else, and she falls out the window, and the fucking eye pops out, and then a car runs over it, and you're like, "What the fuck is this?" But you can't help but go, "I am so loving this at the same
Yeah.
time."
Oh,
It's
it's so good.
perfect.
It's
It's
so
so
good.
good because it knows
And
what it's doing. It
it
knows you're
does.
going for it. And everything else. So
It really works, and again, I kinda like that there's a greatest hits feel to how they
yes,
handle it.
yeah,
Because it's not like a shot for shot, like, rendition of what we see in
not
the
at all.
second one, not
Not
even
at
a
all.
little bit, but it does feel like a kind of fun nod to it,
Right.
and that's how I feel about kind of all of them to a point, because when you look at what happens to Isaac Palmer
Hmm.
and his death inside the massage parlor,
Hmm.
we've seen him inside tanning beds in, like, places of recreation, if you will, like that,
Right.
right? So it is kind of a callback to that,
Yeah.
in a really kind of fun way, but the thing with his that cracks me up is that, like, not only is it over the top as fuck, it couldn't happen to a more deserving fuck in the world. Because he goes in and he keeps trying to ask about getting a happy ending because he's just like this abrasively dumb as fuck dude. And so once he's inside and it's very clear that the receptionist was like, go hard on this dude, give him acupuncture.
Right. Right.
So she does. So then for this guy, this fire starts to break out in the room. The bed that he's on breaks and he falls and has all the acupuncture needles go into him.
Oh
Oh, dude.
god. Oh
Oh,
god.
it's so painful just that, like, saying it out loud, but I love it. And then
Yeah.
just to have it be like, you know he's gonna catch on fire. You know he's gonna catch on fire. You know he's gonna catch on fire, and he doesn't, and a
Listen,
fucking Buddha statue falls on his head and kills him. It's incredible.
The Buddha that he
He rubbed the
fat
stomach of.
shamed earlier.
And
Yeah,
he
this is
fat shamed.
watch the rice cakes
The rice
later.
cakes, yeah. Watch the rice cakes.
So fucking good.
I'm
Um,
telling you, man, this movie is
yeah.
really, really fun. Like, the more I think about it, because I was texting you, I was like, "I really do, you're right." I think there's an argument to be made that this could be the best in the franchise, and it's so funny because going into this, it had been a little while since I had seen all of them, and in my head, I was like, "Nothing is better than the second one."
Right.
Then we watched the 3rd, and I was like, "Actually, the 3rd one's better than the second one."
Right. Right.
But now I'm sitting here going, I think that I said while we did our podcast for the second one that, like, this is where the franchise peaks. Like,
Yeah.
this is it. Like, it doesn't get better from here. I think
And
I'm
here we
wrong,
are.
and I'm gonna walk back. I'm gonna say I think that there's at least 2 entries that are better than the second one now.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, they're close. I think the second one and third they're
Yeah,
close, but I agree. I think what does have to be said here is that I don't think this one could have been as successful or as exciting without having the other 4 to build on.
well, of
Like, because
course.
a lot of the successful parts of it are the subtle nods back, in which some franchises would go over the top with the nods and kinda kill it, and it's like, alright, yeah, we get it. We get it. Yeah, okay, hit me over the head with it, yeah." But they don't know, they just play the greatest hits in, like, that kind of fashion. It's like a cover of the greatest hits album. Um but they do it in their own way. They remix it. They still make it feel fresh, still make it feel exciting. And one of the things to touch on that is the interesting idea. I mentioned it before. The idea that killing somebody and would actually you could take their life or their place in the river of life, so to speak. And I think that's such a fascinating new spin. Something
Yeah.
we haven't seen before. The fact that we're in a prequel where we're doing it, if you found we're a prequel, that makes it even more interesting because it's never touched on again, at least until maybe the next one. Um, I did have one minor. I don't know if this is even a negative or what, but we have Nathan, obviously, who is the one who doesn't believe in that.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not going to believe in that. I don't like because everybody else like Miles is all in. Sam seems to be he's all in on it. He's not in on it. But we have the building up this confrontation between Nathan and Roy, the
This dude who works
the
inside.
factory
So they,
worker or the union
yeah,
guy,
because they all work for a company, and inside the company they have like a bigger,
manufacturing side of
yeah,
things,
manufacturing side to what they do. And so this guy was the foreman, or not the foreman, the what did they
union
say, the
rep,
union rep?
union
Yeah.
rep. Yeah. By the way,
But
speaking of it, how 2011 is it that they work for a paper company?
I know, right?
It's totally not The Office, and I'm here
Well,
for it.
and Keckner was in the office, which is
I
even
exactly.
more
That's
hysterical.
so, um, but yeah, so we have that death sequence where you're like, oh, Nathan's next, but he has an argument with Roy, which has been building the whole time, and I almost thought it was a fun nod. I thought they were going with the idea that that Nathan didn't believe in it, yet he was going to be the one that had it happen to him,
Right.
and so it was like a fun, like little like this guy didn't believe in it, yet he's going to be the one to do it. That's kind of a fun play. But then they did back it. They walked it back a couple minutes later because he actually went. He actually admitted that maybe he did do it. That he
Yeah.
did pull Roy in there to do it. I'm like, okay, I get what you're going for. I kind of it makes it a little less interesting to me, but it makes it more. I understand why you're doing it for the film.
I also thought it was interesting too, though, and this kind of ties into something we were talking about privately before this, is at the end of the movie, you see the plane
Yeah,
sequence, and then once the plane sequences happen, we have like a final like 30-second kind of,
wrap up,
I guess,
clean up,
epilogue, if you will.
say clean
And
up.
it's they're at like the wake for that
Roy,
character Roy, and you see Nathan talking to one of the guys, and he goes, actually, God may have done him a favor. And he's like, wait, what? And he goes, yeah, I mean, they did the autopsy just to make sure it was, everything normal. And it turned out he had a brain aneurysm so big that he was a ticking time bomb. He was going to die any day now. And Nathan goes, wait, what? And the plane has a part that falls onto the bar and kills him. And
right,
so it's kind of funny, almost like darkly so, that of course the one dude who doesn't believe it, that pulls it, and he gets put into the stream, if you will.
yeah,
But Death fucking around is like, yeah, you got put back into the stream, and I immediately took you back.
for a day left. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
and
was
I
funny.
kind
I
of love
guess.
that.
The funny thing was, okay, like I remember when it first happened, when I first watched it, I texted you about it, and I have since softened my stance in the last couple of days. It's actually funny we're doing that. We're recording this a little later than we usually record on
Yeah,
Sunday nights, but for scheduling reasons, we couldn't do it till Tuesday afternoon. So in a way, actually giving me those extra days to kind of think on it might have been beneficial because I hated it at first.
I
My
know you
first
were real
watching,
mad.
I was like, because I love the twist so much. The twist is like a Shyamalan level twist, honestly, a
Yeah,
prequel
dude,
level
the
thing.
twist of this movie is great. Again, like, and you seen footage from the first movie is such
Right.
a like good way to do it.
Absolutely. It was perfectly done. I'm like, my mouth dropped open. I was like, "Holy shit!" Of course, because like it actually went into my mind. I'm not gonna
Right.
lie. Like I thought, flight to Paris. Interesting. Oh, but I thought because of what the film had done so far, it was like just a little nod back to it. That's all it was.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, he gets on there and like, and you start hearing the dialogue. You're like, no fucking way. No fucking when you see the ticket, you're like waiting for the ticket, waiting, you're like waiting for them to get the ticket out. You're like, oh, enter a flight 180, you're like
Yeah.
180. Holy fucking shit. I'm like, what a great way. And then he comes down, he starts getting excited, or getting upset again, and the plane blows. Then we get our second fiery death after we lose Molly out the window, and Sam gets the fire. I'm like, this is such a great, perfect ending. Credits now. And then
And then
nothing
it goes
credits
another
now.
30
And it
seconds.
goes after that and shows, oh, now we're gonna go back to Nathan doing his thing with Roy. Roy and Roy's friend or whatever. I'm kind of like, what a fucking anticlimactic thing to do. You just had your ending. You
Yeah.
just had your ending, and now you're
You
like,
had
like I almost
you just wanted to end with the fiery shot. Let's be real.
let's be honest. You know what the funny thing is? Like, maybe I'm programmed by Marvel in the last like 10, 15 years. I always feel like the if that would have been a post credit scene, I would have liked it better.
Probably.
Like it
It
still would have
does
been
feel like
fine.
one.
It feels like a post credit scene. It would have been fine. It would have. I'd be like, okay, that's perfect. But end on your high note. Hit that note, that Lori Rock note, and go out.
And it's funny you say that too, because I don't know if you caught this or paid attention to it or if you turned it off right as it ended, but they play "If You Want Blood, You've Got It" over like the first 2 minutes of credits, but it's not credits. They start showing literally every kill from the franchise.
I did see that. Yeah, I did see that.
And the very last shot is not a kill. It's Bloodworth standing in the cemetery.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to black, and before the credits go, you hear Bloodworth talking. And he does the "you better watch yourself out there," or whatever it was that he says to them at the graveyard. So
Right.
it kind of felt like a similar post-credit scene sort of
Yeah.
thing in a fun way, where it
Yeah.
was definitely like I was waiting for it to be like Bloodworth will return across the screen, like
In Secret Wars with Kang Dynasty.
right, like
Wow. But yeah. So I guess I said I've softened to it because I do like the idea of death cleaning up afterwards. Death finishing the cleanup, so to speak, as it were.
yeah,
Um, but I still will always hold to the fact that if we could just move the credits up, move that to a post credit scene, chef's kiss.
you're not wrong, probably, and yet I still really, really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Um, man, I am so happy that I like this movie so much, and it is so enjoyable because after the last one, I was nervous that I misremembered how much I liked this one,
Mm.
and I
Okay,
was waiting for the shoe to drop where it was like, "Actually, this was not a very good movie, and you're wrong." And I was only in it for, like, the twist ending, and I am so glad that is not the case at all. Um,
Yeah, me too. I gotta say, after the fourth one, I was feeling similar like you. You said this was better. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna hope this is better, but I can't see how a fifth entry in the saga at this point, like, when it has already, because it feels like it's a saga that it should be getting tired quickly. Like it's a gimmick, it's a
right,
one type gimmick thing. Like even beyond at least Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger, they're kind of one gimmick too, but it's still like you got the charisma of the character itself. Whereas this one, you have Tony Todd, but Tony Todd's always very briefly in them. He's always got these just little small moments.
right.
So the charisma is a unseen force. There's not really charisma at all. So it feels like it can get tired quickly. So I was like, I don't think this film could possibly recapture anything for me after four. I feel like four is going to be the death knell, and everything else will be like, okay, well, it was better than four, but no, this one I really, really highly enjoyed.
Good. I'm so glad to hear you say that too,
No,
because at the end of the day, I was really hoping that this was not gonna be the one that we were, like, split on.
yeah,
Uh, I worried about it a little bit. I was like, "Did I oversell it? Did I undersell it? Do I misremember?" Like, I was waiting for the text message from you where you were like, "You told me that this was better. You're wrong." Like, you know what I mean? Like, that was because, again, I've had, like, a really long fucking week, and that's what it was my scheduling that screwed us up, and I had to push us over to today, but I was waiting for the text message because I knew you were watching it over the weekend, and I
right,
was like, "He's gonna call me, like, the world's biggest moron."
I will admit that in the first like 2 minutes of the movie, I saw like the actors and I saw the way it was being shot. I'm like, it was not a very good beginning for me as far as that goes. Like I just feel like I saw the characters. I'm like, these guys just feel like CW actors at the very beginning. Like, and that was me being very judgmental. I gotta be honest with you because I didn't know any of them at all.
Yeah.
They didn't seem like they were. They kind of felt like they were replacements in a way. I something about it. I was kind of like, but luckily it won me over
Good,
pretty
good.
quickly by then. I think it's
That's,
part because it took its time. Like
yeah,
I feel like that's what one of the things that killed me about 4's opening and everything else is just like all of a sudden they were there and the things were happening and it was kind of like I had no time to deal with any of these characters like who they were. I didn't give a fuck at that point. So kind of like I actually appreciated the we're going to introduce Sam. We're going to introduce Sam and Sam and Molly have these little issues. Sam and Miles have these issues. Nathan has okay, okay. We're getting to know these characters. They kind of seem nice. They kind of seem cool. Okay, I get it.
yeah.
Let's do it slowly, and it worked for its benefit.
It really did. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I can't believe it's been 12 years since we've had a Final Destination movie.
Yeah, I feel like I remember watching like two. I for some reason I thought the Final Destination killed the series off for a while, and we hadn't. And I thought the Final Destination, this one I thought came out a lot more recently. I was like, this was must have been like good thing my Schmodown trivia is out of practice. I was like, this is like 2016, right? 2017, something like that. I was like, wait, 2011?
I am
Damn.
just realizing that Stephen Quayle, the dude who directed this, is
Uh,
also James Cameron's second unit director for Titanic and Avatar.
oh
It's super
wow.
interesting.
Nice.
Dude is very talented, so good for him. Um, this was a really good movie in my opinion on his side too. I just think this is a really well directed movie.
Yeah.
I know I've said that a lot, but like again, I just there's something about it. This one feels the most like a movie outside of the first one, probably
Yeah,
in
I
like
agree.
in the look of it. I don't know what it is about like the others. They look like movies, but this felt like a movie. I don't know. It's the way it's filmed. It just feels different.
I remember, especially in juxtaposing that with the fourth one. The fourth one to me, like I said before, the computer effects looked awful. I thought like it just felt like a
Kind of felt
computer
direct to
game.
video. Yeah.
It felt very direct to video, exactly. This one does feel like a movie. So, well, I guess we do have another one possibly in the mix now,
Yeah,
which
we've
should be
heard
good.
for a little while that John Watts, who directed the last 3 Spider-Man films over at Sony and Marvel, he's tapped to produce, and I think he came up with the story, and they've been working on it for, like, the last year, year and a half.
Yeah,
Um, there hasn't been a ton of movement as far as I'm aware, but Watts trying to do it at New Line feels like him going back to, like, his cop car and clown days,
yeah.
which I think is probably a good thing.
Which,
I'm
by the way, I gotta throw it out there. I'm going through a lot of movies. Like I said, I finished up Need for Speed last night, and that next one up is Cop Car. So I actually started Cop Car, and I had no idea. I had never heard of Cop Car before.
It's
Never heard
super
of it.
good.
And I was like, "Oh, this is John Watts. Oh,
Uh-huh.
okay, cool." So I mean, I haven't gotten too far into it yet. So I'm like the first like 10 minutes into it or so. But
It's
yeah,
real good. I hope you'll enjoy it, but, like, it definitely feels like him going back to that, and I honestly wouldn't be shocked if he decides to direct it because it'd be so much smaller and so different comparatively to doing the big blockbuster stuff, which is why he walked away from Fantastic Four.
right.
So,
Oh, he is doing the Star Wars though. He is obviously doing the.
yeah, but that's already done apparently.
Is it done completely done filming at this point?
Yeah, they already finished it apparently.
I mean, it's supposed
That
to
was
come out like late this year, like December, maybe this year. But
yeah, so they've already shot it apparently.
mm,
We haven't heard a lot obviously on that front, but
right,
I think it'd be interesting if he decided to actually end up directing this one. Just because I think he's a pretty fucking talented filmmaker. I think he could do something, and it would add a little bit of, uh, I guess, I guess the best way to say it is I think it would actually give some creative juice and like really
yeah.
lend some actual real credence to this franchise.
Of course, the only problem I'm seeing now, looking at the wiki for Final Destination series, it was originally supposed to be distributed through HBO Max, so that might be
Well,
one
but I
reason why
mean,
they've
if
had a
we
delay
learned
on it as well.
anything, you're not wrong. But if we just saw, look at what they did with Evil Dead.
Right, it could oh, yeah, absolutely could go off that way as well.
Um,
I don't even think I'd mind this being a streaming film if necessary. I'd rather
yeah,
have it a streaming film than not at all. I mean, I'm always gonna be a proponent for a big theater release for everything because I just love the theater. But I'd rather
it's
have a streaming Final Destination than not have a Final Destination.
Oh, I agree, and it's funny too because Tony Todd originally said in 2011 that they had 2 scripts to shoot back to back. So it
Interesting.
makes you wonder what the hell happened there.
Yeah.
after the success of that last one. You know what I mean? Because if you had 2 scripts and you were gonna shoot them back to back, where did that go? What were they gonna do? And I do have to wonder, uh, what's going to happen. Okay, so Lipovitsky and Adam B. Stein would co-direct it, so they were gonna be that's right, they announced that, and they had done, like, an elaborate death hoax on Zoom to get the meeting
Attention.
and
Yeah.
to get the attention to do it. So they have the directors. John Watts came up with the story. So it looks like Final Destination 6 is happening. And it seems like the kind of thing Zaslav would put the money in because it should be made for very little.
That's what I was about to say too. I'm surprised it took this long because if you're looking back at Final Destination 5, the budget was 40 million and it made about 106, almost 116 million. That seems like a no-brainer to like
I
pump
mean, it
another one out.
did 4 times of its budget.
That seems like a
Like,
no-brainer, pump another one out.
right. That's why, and again, to the point, Tony Todd saying that we had 2 scripts, and at one point, I know that the potential 6th one had to do with EMTs and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So I was really curious what that was gonna look like, and it just never happened.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting.
So, I mean, look, I'm absolutely down for another Final Destination. I enjoyed our watch through of the series, even if I didn't love the 4th movie. But I really think Final Destination 5 is actually, like, a good movie, and again, it helps that the others are really good leading into it, but, like, there's something about this one in particular that really it stands out and it's very good,
Yeah.
and I think
Speaking of that, let's rank it. Let's rate it.
I knew that's what I was setting you up for.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I
Man, look
got
at you picking up earlier you didn't understand when I was like, "Hey, movie's almost over," and then you hadn't created a StreamYard or done anything. You're like, "I'm out of practice." I was like, "So you don't understand my shorthand and the way that I'm talking to you anymore." But here I like set you up and you knocked it out of the park. You know what? Credit where credit's due. I'm really proud of you.
I appreciate that. You know, you give me a little bit like it's like riding a bike. I started riding the bike. We're here about an hour and a half in now. Riding the bike. We're good to go now. Let's talk about our ranking so far, especially considering you might revisit your 4th one ranking. We ranked the first film. I gave it a 6.5. You gave it a 7.5. Final Destination 2, I gave a 7.5. You gave an 8. Final Destination 3, we both gave 8s. The Final Destination, I gave it a 1.5 and you gave it a 3. So where do we go with Final Destination 5?
I'm gonna go ahead and move the Final Destination one down to a 2
Okay,
because
that's fair.
I've soured on it much more the farther away I've gotten it from it. So we're gonna start there.
So then now move on to Final Destination 5. I'm still trying to figure that out myself a little bit, to be honest with you.
I'm gonna be honest, man.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna give this guy an 8 as well. And then
Okay.
once we rank them, I can go from there. But I think that it's just so like specifically tied with those ones. But I'm gonna move Final Destination 2 down to a 7.5.
Oh, so you're joining me in that one. Wow.
Mhm.
Now our Final Destination 2 and 3 ranks are exactly the same 7.5
Yeah,
and 8. Okay.
yeah.
Interestingly enough, I'd like to say 2, 3, and 5 would be the same for us. But I'm going ahead and I'm going to declare it the winner. And I'm giving it an 8.5.
I almost did that and I talked myself out of it. But you know what?
But
Round that bad boy up.
all right. Our favorite of the series then.
All right. Look at
At an
us.
8.5. Final Destination 5 is our favorite. Second place with our combined average is Final Destination 3 with an 8. Final Destination 2 at a 7.5. Final Destination at an average of 7. And then a 1.75 for the Final Destination.
That one got off lucky.
Which one of these is not like the others?
Yeah, gee, I wonder.
So our total average of these films, it's funny enough, our average of these films is 6.55. And that's all because of the Final Destination being so low.
That movie throws the curve so bad that it makes
So
the rest
badly.
that like it's like this series is only kind of average, and it's like no, it's actually pretty good. Only one of you is really bad, but you threw it for the rest of the class, you bastard.
God damn it. Go sit in the corner, you dunce, pretty
Yeah,
much.
correct. The Final Destination is bad, and it should feel really fucking bad.
Right, exactly.
I
That's
really
it.
dislike that movie.
Yeah, me too. Me
Yeah.
too. Well, what are you gonna do? What are you
What
gonna do?
we're gonna talk about how much we like Final Destination 5. Wait, we just did that.
We just
So, I guess that means we're done with the Final Destination
we
franchise.
are done with the Final Destination franchise, which means we gotta go on to a new franchise. We have
Yeah,
not
I was about
announced
to ask
anything
you
yet.
about that. You know,
Um,
I've
we
heard
did go.
rumors.
We've had a couple rumors going around. Obviously, we do have this was done for our patron Brandy Parker. We do have a couple of patrons who are owed a franchise to go through. Um, but I'm
And we're gonna
sorry to
get there.
say,
We're
yeah,
gonna
we
get
are
there.
going to get there. But
Promise.
we did want to do patron a patron one back to back to back. We want to kind of like sprinkle those out a little bit. Um, so there's a show I'm doing called Class Action, as you know well, we're on this very channel, and
Yeah,
right
yeah, yeah.
now we are in the midst
Wait, wait,
of
wait.
a
Let me set this up though, to go with along with this.
okay.
It's really funny because when we started talking about the next one, we knew that this was it. We were gonna get through it, and you and I both went, "Look, man, we gotta do something," and I think we both had the same thought, and I had kinda told you, I was like, "I love horror.
Love
I
horror.
really need to take a small step away from it for a little bit and, like, get the palate cleansed a little bit
Yep.
for us to get back to it." So, I kept being like, "I really love what we're doing, but I think people think we're only gonna talk about horror movies," which is not really true because 'cause we've done Lord of the Rings, even if I made an argument that Fellowship of the Ring is actually a horror movie. But I thought it would be a good idea to do something different. And so I pitched this to you in a brand of synergy with the rest of the channel because I thought it was a really good idea.
And I was jumping on board and I said, absolutely, because I would love to do these as well. Because let's face it, also, if you know me very well, you know my history in this YouTube space. I obviously came around for the Schmodown and everything else, but I also worked for a long time and still work occasionally with Action Industries with Ben Bateman and Andrew Guy. They used to do a show called Action Movie Anatomy, which
Mhm.
was one of my inspirations to do podcasting as well. So if I'm not going to do horror,
We got to go to some place that you and I both like.
and what is
To
that?
a franchise maybe that you and I both like quite a bit that we've talked about on here before.
We have. In fact, I think we quoted it a few times in this very episode.
It's almost like I thought about that intentionally.
And I almost like I picked that up what you were doing. Because here we are. That's right. We are going to start
Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon.
Yes. I
Wait,
am so excited.
which one of us is Riggs and which one of us is Murtaugh? So I don't know.
I mean, there's the obvious answer. One of us is older than the other one.
That's true. I am too old for this shit.
Yeah, you're too old for this shit. But I don't
Oh,
know.
bud. You don't give a fuck. I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to do this. This is a great film series. Obviously, I'm doing Lethal Weapon versus Die Hard. So in a way, I just watched Lethal Weapon movies, but I'll probably still have to rewatch them because I want to go in depth with each one. But getting to watch Lethal Weapon a second time in 2 weeks is fine by me because I'm gonna spoiler aside. There is no the Final Destination in the Lethal Weapon series.
Thank God.
Every one is a banger to a degree. I obviously like some more than others, but overall, I like the entire franchise, and I can't wait to talk about it. Um, I'm excited. I'm very excited for it.
I am too. And, obviously we'll talk about it once we get into it. But like the Lethal Weapon movies were a huge part of what helped my upbringing of movies and stuff.
Mhm.
So they hold a very special place in my heart. I very frequently cite this series as the best overall American action franchise of the 80s and 90s. I think that it's a conversation we can have when we're doing it, but like as far as these four movies are concerned, I don't think there's a real weak link in it at all. I think that it's actually a really special series, and we'll get into why it's so special and what makes it so interesting and so cool, and why I continue to crown it like of the action franchises being the strongest of its era and of its time. Obviously, there's arguments now for the Mission Impossible franchise and for John Wick and stuff like that. But if we're talking about like the classic big dogs, that when it came to like this or Die Hard, some of those, Universal Soldier. There was a lot of big action franchises in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but like this one has always stood the test of time better, I think, than all the others.
I agree. I agree. It's probably the best duo we've ever had in action. But
Mhm.
this is the buddy cop. This is the buddy
This
cop movie,
is,
really.
yeah.
That started it all. I can't wait for it. This is going to be a very exciting action, fun comedy. It's great direction from Donner. This is gonna be a fun get through. I hope you guys are excited as we are to go through it because this is definitely one of the better series we're going to cover. I'm
Oh,
not gonna.
absolutely. I'm beyond thrilled at this point that we're gonna get to do something like this. So,
Yeah.
you know, buckle up, guys. We're on an adventure of diplomatic immunity and
It's not going to get revoked
cougar
though.
rants.
We're not going to get revoked this time. We're not going to get revoked anyway.
You're damn right we're not.
Absolutely. Uh, whatever you want. God,
Whatever you guys want,
Leo gets.
Leo gets.
Yes. All right, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with us for Final Destination and sticking with us through this break. If you want to join us on patreon.com/PLD Products, you can join these fine people such as Allison Salamoni, Brandon Buckingham, Brandy Parker, Jeff Alterman, John Lestrina, Partners Jessica Dason, and others. We thank you. Of course, we could not keep the lights on without you. So we really appreciate you in both the support and our great Facebook chat, as well as different fun things we do. Like this Saturday, we're going to be doing a watch along of some kind. I haven't decided what yet, but we're going to do some kind of watch along. But also, if you are new to the channel, new to the thing, please hit that like, hit that subscribe, leave us some comments. The YouTube channel is on the march towards 500 subscribers. It's a modest goal I have. I'm just we're about 344 right now. So let's just keep that going, keep that train rolling. And again, we got some great content on this channel. We do have Class Action, which I just mentioned. I'm about to go film that in about an hour from now. We're doing Die Hard with a Vengeance versus Lethal Weapon 3. I can't wait to get into that. We got the Crown Jewels show to go through the catalog of Queen. This week we're doing Now I'm Here, one of the great big rockers of the 1970s from the band. And of course, tomorrow, Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast, our second episode. We're going to be talking about the Bad Batch, myself and Maddie Gunner. This is a fun time to be on the network. So I hope you guys stick around and have a good time with us because we're having fun. You find me at Paul_Danuzzi on Twitter. Where can they find you, PJ?
Twitter, Instagram, PJ_Campbell. Finding me hanging out here with this beautifully mustached individual for the 2023 season of Two Mediocre White Dudes on Film. And you can find me serving beer over in Tucson.
Nice. I'll be there soon. All right, guys. Until next time, of course, stay mediocre, guys.
Bye, friends.